So a film topic box is an episode that features mainly random questions and also a few little fun games and trivia in between.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Got nothing more to add.
I'm going to hit you with a few quotes to start off with.
Okay.
Tell me what film these are from. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Easy start.
Nice.
Well done.
My favourite Harry Potter film.
Not mine. I am a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Can you say that again?
I'm a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Elf.
Congratulations.
Which is their equivalent to a very naughty swear word.
Mm.
Yes. One that I won't repeat myself.
Well, he's quite a naughty character, isn't he?
He doesn't fit into their society and it creates a bit of tension, but yeah, that's what movies are all about.
Creating tension. Nobody puts a baby in a corner.
Ooh, I don't know that one. Nobody puts a baby in a corner. Is it literal or?
No, don't think of films with babies in.
No, that's where my mind is going. Don't put a baby in a corner. I don't know. Enlighten me.
Dirty Dancing.
Ah, I hate that film.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really popular though.
I know, I've only seen it once. It's just not my thing. Yeah.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Gone with the Wind. I haven't seen that, but such a well-known line.
Just a quick interlude. What is one of the most famous movie quotes that you can think of?
It's gotta be like, we're gonna need a bigger boat from Jaws. I'll be back. I am your father.
For me, that's the biggest one. I am your father is universally recognisable.
I know, yeah. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't know what film that's from.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
Home Alone.
I'm pretty sure I said that completely in the wrong way. How is that quote said?
I don't know. It's like a bit more of a pause after your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like your girlfriend.
Hence the full
Woof,
stop.
Like that,
Mm.
yeah.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Oh, I know this one.
It's an old film.
Casablanca.
Very good.
Which we might talk about in our next episode.
Why is that?
Well, we'll be going on to 1940s films, and Casablanca is probably the most well-known film from that era.
Exciting.
Yes.
Look out for that next week. Think you deserve to be here, don't you? Fraternising among Navy men.
Oh, I don't know. It's got to be a war film of some kind.
It's not a film I've heard of.
Oh. I don't know. What is it?
Men of Honour.
Never seen it. Never heard of it.
We'll move on.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you?
The Graduate. One of my favourite films. Yeah.
Never seen it.
I know, you got to get on that train.
For someone that's co-hosting a movie quitter.
Yeah, we haven't started off well. A lot of films we haven't seen, which we probably should have.
And finally, I guess you guys aren't ready for that, but you kids are going to love it.
Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Which one?
Number one.
Is it? What's that in relation to?
He plays Chuck Berry on stage and goes mad with the guitar.
Yeah.
So now we'll move on to the main part of our topic box episode, which is the questions.
Yes, the most exciting part.
If I gave you 2 tickets to see an action film or a rom-com at the cinema, what would you choose and why?
It's a good question because both those genres are the sort of film you'd want to see with someone else. Like, obviously action films are big and triumphant and you'd want to feel every moment with a friend maybe. And a rom-com would just be a little sad if you were in the cinema by yourself. Not to judge anyone, but it wouldn't be the same vibe.
And you've got 2 tickets, so in this context you're with someone, so you could choose who that's with as well.
Yeah, I guess rom-coms would just have to be on a date. I couldn't really see myself going with a friend to a big cheesy rom-com.
Friday night.
I don't really like rom-coms anyway, but I don't really go on that many dates, to be fair. So the chances that I'd find someone to go to that rom-com with would probably not be very likely. So I'm going to go with action. Because I've got loads of buddies that I'd want to check out the new Top Gun, for example. Yeah.
And so if you were to do that, it would be a rom-com and a date, which are both obviously quite unusual. So when you go, for example, when I went on a date and saw many moons ago, I saw Bridesmaids.
That's a good date movie.
It's a fantastic
Yeah.
date movie, really funny. But I remember thinking, I'm actually not paying attention to this film because my hands are sweating. I'm not sure whether to hold this girl's hand or
Yeah,
not
you're
sure what the
focused
cinema
more
is.
on the date than, which might be alright because rom-coms are my least favourite type of film, so I wouldn't really care if I'm paying attention to the film whatsoever. So it wouldn't really matter in that situation. But if it was a new action film I really wanted to see, then I wanted to be fully glued to that. And if I was going on a date, I'd probably want it to be with a girl who's more into action films than rom-coms, because that's probably what I'd gravitate more towards anyway.
Fair enough. And where does rom-com come from? Romantic comedy, where did that start?
It's like the most traditional genre, really. Like, obviously, back in the studio era of Hollywood, they just paired two massive actors next to each other, such as like Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca. Like these big sweeping love stories that is obviously very universal. Like love is the most universal emotion, so any cinema goer could get wrapped up in the story. So they've been around since the dawn of time, really.
And it's weird that it very much separates people because you speak to a lot of guys, particularly when growing up, I think, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, I'm not watching that."
Rom-coms.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's kissing.
but now it's kind of, I feel like as you get older, I'm maybe not as keen as sitting down and watching something like Notting Hill. Although at the same time,
There's some good ones.
Yeah, we had a great experience watching when Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, that was great.
And I remember thinking, this is going to be okay. But I came out thinking that is one of the best romantic comedies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it was different. The dialogue was really interesting. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's a really interesting way of having a film. I don't usually like it when you have gaps in a film, like of years, basically.
Yeah.
I feel it takes away from the story usually. And you see that a lot in biopic films, for example, when there's kind of time lapses. But these time lapses are absolutely key to the story, and they work really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the two characters, and there's a lot of funny moments in it. So I have to say that was pleasantly surprising. What would you say are some of your favourites?
Yeah, obviously When Harry Met Sally is excellent, and there are many examples of rom-coms that I do like, but they're not the type that fit nicely in the genre. Like, I don't like the overly schmaltzy, just kind of very cheesy, happy-go-lucky type rom-coms. Mine are often kind of a bit more distinct or like different. I really like Punch Drunk Love, which is arguably not even a rom-com, but it is about two people falling in love, and they're not like the cookie cutter stereotypes. Like one of them has kind of learning difficulties, the other one is very like candid, and the way they fall in love is very unconventional, and yeah, it doesn't fall into the trappings of the normal crap rom-coms. So Punch Drunk Love is one of my favourites, yeah. Other ones, I really like Blue Valentine, but that's kind of like an anti-rom-com. But obviously the title suggests it's quite different. Like Blue Valentine, it's very sad and morbid and kind of shows a loving couple deteriorating and falling out of love with each other. So you can see what sort of films I'm attracted to. Not really like the new Marry Me with like Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez. That's not really my cup of tea.
Do you think it seemed like there was a few real big hitters in the 80s and 90s, particularly like the American films of, as I mentioned, Notting Hill and others? Is there still a market for that? Are you seeing films released on Netflix in the last few years that very much fit that mould?
Yeah, it's different because there are a lot of rom-coms still being released, but not big budget ones. Do you know the sort that will get a lot of people in cinemas? As I said, Marry Me was in cinemas quite recently, and that was quite a big hit, and just one of those big, typical, like, Hollywood rom-coms. But nowadays, we kind of see them get released straight to Netflix. There's obviously loads of rom-coms surrounding, like, teens and younger adults, rather than, like, older people. But yeah, there are a lot being released, just crap ones that go straight to streaming.
And going to the cinema, there are obviously a lot of different styles of films that you can see. Can you think of some of the best kind of genres of film that are really good for seeing at the cinema? And maybe any examples recently where you thought, oh, I don't need to see that film at the cinema, I can wait for it to be released because maybe it doesn't have A or B big special effects that I need to see on a big screen.
Yeah, it does factor into my choice of what films I see at the cinema. Like, I don't just see a film in the cinema just because I think it'll be good. It's kind of like, do I need to see it on the big screen? Will it be enhanced by going to see it at the cinema? Or can I just wait for it to come out on DVD or on streaming? I think horror is a great genre to see in the cinema because you really feed off the audience. Like, even if it's a crap horror film, if the audience are gasping or like making audible noises, or you kind of feel the tension in the room, it can really enhance the film. Like, I've mentioned going to see A Quiet Place before, and that was one of the best cinema experience ever. Because obviously the idea of the movie is that you can't make any sounds, and that actually translated into the room where the audience were just so vigilant and not making any sound, and it just created this really like tense atmosphere where people wouldn't even like eat popcorn or open like sweet packets because they were just like in the movie, and it was brilliant. Yeah, just character dramas are ones that I don't really care to see in cinemas unless it's like one of like the big films coming out. I'd normally wait for it to come out on streaming.
That's a great point about A Quiet Place, because films that play with sound, and that one in particular was so unique in the way it used sound and music in its film to kind of continue with the story. So I would have loved to have seen that. And I also think just horrors in general, because I think some of the best movie experiences I've had have been in the cinema when you're watching something like The Conjuring, or I think I saw It in the cinemas. And
yep.
I think that when you've got... Because I get quite scared anyway. Sometimes I do go like this. Which, funny enough, I learnt in a lecture the other week that apparently after some research, if you do cover away so that you can't see the screen, the effect it has actually worsens your fear.
Really?
And it makes sense in a way, because all of a sudden you're relying on just the sound because you can't see anything. Whereas when you're able to use your eyes and ears, there's obviously that you have more of an understanding of what's going on, so you're less scared.
Yeah, if you're just hearing it, it might create like disorientation, and you might actually be generating images in your head that are far worse. Like, obviously, you can create far scarier things in your brain than just seeing an actor being scared. So that makes sense, actually.
It's weird thinking it, because I always used to shy away, but now I'm very wary of that. And I even think of like when, for example, if you're blindfolded, then it's completely weird because you don't have a sense of what's around you. So yeah, I'm not going to do that watching a horror anymore. But as I say, it's really when you're in that group environment and you're all watching a horror film, there's just something about that where you're collectively in it together. Yeah,
I recently saw Barbarian in cinemas, and that's got some really amazing reveals and twists in the story where it totally goes on a left turn and subverts your expectations. And you could just like feel the audience go like, what? And you could just feel like the energy, and yeah, that was such a good experience.
I was at a theatre a few weeks ago, and
An actual theatre. Ah.
And a few weeks ago, a elderly couple walked out in the interval. Have you ever seen anyone walk out the cinema?
I need a bit of context to that. What were you seeing at the theatre?
I was seeing a small show, and it was a World War One comedy that one of my friends was in. This is in London.
Oh, okay.
Really good show, but I think the elderly couple had been surprised when there was quite a lot of profanity and sexual jokes in Act 1. So I heard at the end of the show, because it's quite a small theatre, that they then left during the interval. I suppose that's maybe a valid reason for them to leave, because they didn't like...
No, they heard World War One, and they thought they'd go back to their heyday. Yeah. We'll meet again.
Wasn't quite that when they got there.
No.
So that led me on to think, have you either walked out yourself or seen people walk out of a cinema?
I've walked out of the cinema once, but it was nothing to do with the actual film. I was actually really enjoying the film. It was called The Climb. I think I've told you this story, but I was just happily enjoying the film. I was the only person in the cinema. It was like amazing for a good chunk of the movie. And then randomly, about 6 or 7 teenagers just walked in, about 17, just random like chavvy looking teenagers, just came and sat in the row in front of me. I don't know why they were there. And
Did they see you there?
Yeah, it was like an hour into the movie as well, and they just started talking and just making loud noises and looking at me. just in a film that they'd never come to see either. It was like a really art house film. So either they were just there waiting for their film to start, or just hiding from something. I don't know. It was absolutely bizarre. But I didn't have the courage to tell 7 people to shut up, so I just left.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely infuriated.
Were you close to getting the staff?
Nearly, but they were the sort of people that might actually stab me if I'd snitched on them. It was a very uncomfortable experience. And in terms of other people walking out, I'm not sure. I actually think somebody walked out of Decision to Leave, which I saw recently.
So they decided to leave?
Yeah, they actually decided to leave. It's a South Korean, like, erotic thriller. So there's a few, like, kind of sexual things and a bit of violence. But I don't know why they'd leave. It was such a good film. Maybe they just went to the bathroom and lost their way. Who knows?
It's dark in the cinema.
It is, it's scary.
There was 2 films that I nearly walked out of. The first one is years ago. It was Norbit with Eddie Murphy. I remember thinking, I was only a teenager anyway, but I remember thinking, this is an awful film. I don't need to watch this, but I think I stayed.
Didn't you get that from the trailer?
Yeah.
Oh. You just decided to see it anyway.
I tell you what, any film, or most films that have an actor playing multiple characters, and I'm thinking when Eddie Murphy's in Norbit, or Adam Sandler in Jack and Jill.
Or Tyler Perry with his Medea films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, don't tend to go too well, do they?
Not really. It's a bit egotistical. Like, I'm too good to play one part. I'll play every part.
Although it does work in Coming to America quite nicely.
Yeah. Maybe he was trying to replicate that, Eddie Murphy. But
Oh, in Norbit. And
yeah.
Thinking, yeah. But it does show a certain amount of, that's interesting that they can mix up different characters. But it did not work for Norbit. And then the other film was the last Star Wars, where I turned to my mate, but we just soldiered on. We just thought, look, we're here now, we'll stay to the end, but we probably should have left.
At what point did you want to leave? Was it quite early on?
It wasn't. It's kind of middle of the film when they're doing a little side mission. I think they're seeing the little guy. Tiny guy.
Baba Sheik?
Yeah,
Baba,
Baba
what's he
Sheik.
called?
When Baba
That
Sheik
guy's
started
legendary,
speaking,
to be fair.
Oh,
You don't like that?
not really.
That was my favourite part of the film.
I think he had to fix a droid or mend C-3PO.
What they kind of did in that film is they set up consequences and then totally backtracked them. Like, Chewbacca died, but then he didn't. And then C-3PO had to have, like, his memory wiped, but then he didn't. So it's kind of like setting up big consequences and then they didn't really pay off. And that kind of really infuriates people. But I was just kind of laughing at how stupid it all was. Yep.
Yeah, if you can get to that moment when you're laughing instead of annoyed, that's good.
Yeah, I kind of laughed at everyone else groaning and getting frustrated. I found that quite enjoyable, which is a bit sick, but...
Next question. What do you like to eat or drink while watching a film?
I'm not a big snack guy during films because I am very conscious about the sound I'm making. So I'll often choose a snack that's like the most quiet type ever. So I'll never eat popcorn or crisps or like peanut M&Ms, even though I enjoy all of those things. Because I know if somebody else was in the cinema and just crunching on that, I'd just be infuriated.
So why do we pick the loudest things to eat in a cinema?
Because they are tasty and satisfying to eat elsewhere. Popcorn, I don't know where that came from, being a big cinema snack. Because it is very, very loud. If you're kind of sucking it for a little bit, it softens it up. But like,
people aren't doing that.
People don't eat quietly. They're just like, oh.
I'm thinking especially, so let's say you had a tea and a pot of soup and you were just slurping on both. That would be a nightmare.
It would. Yeah, what snacks do I like? I really like chocolate. So like mint Aeros are nice and quiet. I really like Revels because I'm an old man. I like the different types. So it's like watching a film and you pick one not knowing what it is and then you're like, ooh, a toffee.
I wouldn't like that.
And
You
the
just
next
had a
one's
jump
like,
scare.
ooh, coffee one.
You've just had a jump scare and then you put like a nut one and you're like, oh.
There aren't any nut ones, Alex.
Whatever. The raisin one. That would be horrible.
Why? You want like a treat that you know will satisfy. And if you pick one that's not your favourite, it's like, oh God.
Yeah. Mainly because I think that if it were let's say like if it were a trail mix and it was full of Magic Stars, M&Ms, Whisper Bites, I'd feel a lot more comfortable because every time you're going in, you know, and right, there's going to be something I like. Whereas Revels don't have that for me.
I like all the Revels though. There's not one that I dislike. I like some more. Like I really like the orange and the coffee one, but I'm happy with all of them. In terms of drink, I normally just take water, to be honest, because if you're having sweets and like a fizzy drink, your teeth get really like numb and brittle after a while. So normally just water, which is a boring answer, but it is my drink of choice.
And something to think about as well, if you're in a cinema, you don't want to drink too much. Toilet break midway through the film.
Yeah, if it's a really nice fizzy drink, you're just like slurping on it and coming back every like 2 minutes, then suddenly you need a wee. But with water, I just drink it when I'm thirsty, really.
And some people may think these things aren't that important, you know, you just eat while watching a film, but the viewing experience is absolutely key to watching a film. And I've just had a thought that there's obviously a lot of talk nowadays about getting into some sort of flow state when we're doing a podcast, playing an instrument, whatever it may be. And when I've watched films with you, I think you do a very good job of kind of almost you're absolutely in that film. Whereby, for example, I'm a bit of a shuffler, so I'd constantly be altering the pillows, or I'm not that comfortable and I find it hard, and I look over at you and you're just in the same position
like a corpse.
Yeah, I think I have to kind of touch you to make sure you're still alive. Like, are you still there? How do you do it? And do you find that you do get into some sort of flow state when you're watching a film?
Yeah, it doesn't come naturally. Like, you train yourself over time to just be in the movie and avoid all distractions. I'm a bit of a shuffler at first, but I kind of make sure I get all my shuffling out the way before the film started, so I'm nice and comfy, and then I just kind of sit in quite a rigid pose.
Your arms by your sides, yeah.
I don't know why, but I think it's about not having distractions around you, so not having your phone out or even in the room, not having like any lights on so it's nice and dark, having good sound so it's nice and immersive, and just making sure that people aren't coming in and out the room, like they know that you're watching a film and you don't want to be distracted. And my parents kind of know the hard way not to distract me. And I'm trying not to be as impatient. Yeah, a dick. Trying not to be as impatient with them. Because when I was young, I was like, I'm watching a film. Don't come in here when they're trying to bring me like a drink or something. Oh, no. So now I'm like, yeah, thank you for the drink. Yeah. You can go now.
That's a nicer way of saying it.
Yeah, I'm better at it now.
But distractions are really important to notice, because that's why I think people really enjoy going to the cinema, because rarely in a day, and let's say you work in an office, for example, there's rarely a time where you get like an hour that's undistracted, because you've either got emails or your phone or someone talking to you. And I know a film is almost a distraction in itself, but it's only one task to focus on.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only times I feel that you can get kind of lost, or you don't get distracted by other things, and it's a time when you don't need to be. You can just put all your worries and distractions to the side and just concentrate on that.
Yeah, it's something I've tried to implement in my life, is monotasking. So just making sure that my mind is only focused at one thing at any time. So if I'm doing the washing, I just do the washing. I'm not listening to music or checking my phone. If I'm just answering emails, I'm only answering emails. I'm not looking at Instagram at the same time. And that's why I really like going to the cinema, because you're just like focused on one thing and just being absorbed in it. And I think when your mind is in two different places or focusing on multiple things, that's when anxiety and stress starts to come in, because everything becomes overwhelming. But if you focus at one thing at a time, then everything becomes quite easy.
Couldn't agree more. And it's weird because we have to almost untrain ourselves from multitasking, because you grow up and you see everyone doing it, and for a lot of the time I thought multitasking was really key, and whether that be listening to music while editing a podcast or watching the football while doing something on my phone, and I thought I was being really productive. And when you kind of look into it, as I'm sure you have as well, and there was a really interesting podcast on it that said you're actually really not helping yourself, because all of a sudden the two tasks that you're doing, you're not able to switch between them very well. So if you were emailing, you're going to make mistakes there. If you're editing something, whatever it is you're doing, you're not going to be performing at
Yeah,
your
you're
maximum.
doing both tasks, just worse.
Yeah, and they might take longer because you're switching in
Yeah,
between.
it's natural because you kind of think you are being more productive, and it's like the best of both worlds. Like, do I listen to music or do I like write an email? But I can do both. But really, you're just not listening to the music properly, and you're just like, as you said, making mistakes writing the email. So just write the email, then you can listen to music.
And you could kind of, if you do the email, you kind of treat yourself with a song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were speaking earlier about watching the film and about distractions. And I also thought of kind of the best environment and scenario you can watch a film. So maybe we can go through a couple of things. Like how important, for example, do you think, let's say, the screen is? Like, could you watch a film on a really tiny 14-inch, or, is there kind of a limit?
Are we talking more about the home setup? Or...
Yeah, let's go home setup, because I actually know people do watch their films on an iPhone, for example, or it's mainly TV on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like going to work on a train, for example. I've never really been keen on that. Or if, for example, if you're going on an airplane, sometimes I used to watch films on an iPad, or you watch them in the seat in front of you on quite a small screen. So
Yeah.
what do you make of that?
Well, obviously it's not ideal, but there are scenarios where it is quite nice to watch a film if you're commuting and you can't really carry a 40-inch screen with you, can you? So it might have to be on your phone or on like an iPad. But if I had the option to watch it on a big TV, I would always choose that. Like, I'd never go to my room and watch it on my phone. Like, that'd just be terrible. I think in terms of TVs, if you're going less than 30-inch, it's not good enough for me. Like, I don't want to sound snobby, but I don't know, it gets a bit too small. You know what I mean? Obviously, not everyone can dish out for like a 70-inch, and I know my TV's not that big, but in an ideal world, I would want a big TV when I'm older, like 60-inch or something like that.
So a friend invites you around, you arrive there, maybe a bottle of wine, you're going for dinner first. Special night.
A 20-year-old going around to his friend's house with a bottle of wine. Very realistic.
Pack of 4 Stellas.
That's more like it.
He says, we're going to watch a Nolan film. You get there, 27-inch TV. Do you walk out before the food, or do you grin and bear it?
I think I'd at least say, hi, how are you doing? Then I'd make some excuse up. I'd be like, my mum's dying. I've got to leave. I've just got to get out of there. It doesn't matter what excuse it is. I've just got to get out of there as soon as possible to avoid having to watch a Nolan film on a 27-inch screen.
And then what you do is you go home, watch that very same film on your nice TV.
Yeah, and I just feel so much better watching it by myself, alone, but with a big TV. Obviously, that'd be a much better scenario. But all jokes aside, I wouldn't be that picky. Like, I'd obviously try and enjoy the film, but it would be preferred if their TV was bigger, I have to say. And yeah, I'm looking to invest in some surround sound for myself. I've got a family surround sound system, but not at uni, and my TV like audio quality is terrible, which makes film watching quite uncomfortable at times.
That's something that I learned quite recently, just in terms of like this. Obviously, the screen is important, but in a lot of scenarios, whether I was watching House of Dragon or a lot of different types of film, they do require quite good sound. Whether you want to hear even the dialogue or the action or the way that the music and other things are mixed together. And yeah, if you don't have good speakers attached to the TV, or if your TV hasn't got good speakers, it does take away from the film a bit. And so I've recently realised that.
Yeah, it is one side of film watching that gets more, avoided. Well, you kind of think, big TV, that's important, but most people don't think about the audio, and they are equally important, I think, yeah.
Did you ever hear about my hypothesis, or maybe it's not a hypothesis, but with flying on a plane? And because I've done a few long haul flights before, and I've always said, I don't know why this has been the case, but there's only certain types of films you should watch on an airplane.
Yeah.
And for me, that would either fall under films that you've seen before or comedies. And I wouldn't really ever touch animated films or
Animated
horror
films?
action. Yeah, I just have something about it. I just think I think it's a lot to do with obviously the size of the screen and also like the amount of distractions you get in. You're listening to it through like a really bad pair of headphones that don't cover your ears, and then you're getting interrupted all the time by people moving from the seat or giving out food. So I think you can't really, well, you can do what you like. It's a free country, but for me, I just kind of want to watch a film that I've seen before.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a good YouTuber called Karsten Rundquist who I really like, and he recently made a video about airplane movies and what like the best types of movies are to watch, and they basically follow that same ground, like films that you've already seen before that you know back to front, so that you can almost just enjoy it freely instead of watching a film you really wanted to see for a long time. And even picking really long films would be a great option. Like, I think an ideal film would be something like Forrest Gump, where you know it so well and it's just really enjoyable and, cheesy, but it's very long as well, so it eats up a lot of that, airplane time. Because if you just watch an hour and a half film, you look down and it's like 8 hours left, you're like, what am I going to do? you know?
And what's your take on projectors?
On projectors?
So, some houses...
That was such a weird transition.
I should have left a bit more of a pause. And also, what do I mean by projectors? Do I just mean
I know
computer?
what a projector is.
So, because obviously there's quite a few houses I've been to recently have had a projector that just kind of either lights up onto the wall or a screen comes down. Obviously the quality is not as good, but it's quite nice to watch it on a big screen at home.
I've never actually experienced that, aside from like obviously the cinema, so I can't really comment too much, but I think there's something quite nostalgic about it, or it feels kind of more personal in a way. I don't know. It feels like if you're setting up the projector and you're getting the movie ready, it's a bit more effort to get it set up, so it kind of feels more special in a way. What?
Go on. Is that why, when you mentioned more special, when I've been watching films recently with the house or whoever's around, I've put on the View advertisement. So I've put on YouTube in films, and then I've put that on YouTube before the film starts.
You deliberately want to watch that?
Well, it's just something about watching that and then everyone gets excited.
I can see the concept, but I've seen that. For people that don't know, at the View cinemas, before the movie starts, there's like a 5-minute kind of promotional thing. Basically, it's just a very preachy promo saying that you shouldn't watch films on your phone or even a laptop or TV because it's not the same as watching it in the cinema. And then it like zooms out to like a woman's face at the cinema, really getting wrapped up in it all. And they play that in front of every single film at View. And I've seen it probably 30 times, and I hate it. It makes me want to cry. So
doesn't get you excited for a film.
No, so to deliberately want to watch that is kind of crazy to me, although I can understand the concept. Maybe watching trailers before the film would be a better idea. So
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So YouTube movie trailers, but I think View could definitely change it around because it's been over 3 years now they've had the same.
I wouldn't mind too much if it wasn't so long. But it's like literally 5 minutes long, and it keeps on going and going, and it's like, no. It's well made, no doubt about it, but yeah.
Don't need to see it.
Mm-mm.
And a quick take on outdoor films, because there's been a couple I've watched, and one I had recently was quite a cold evening where I went round someone's house, and he invited a few of us round from the tennis club, which was very nice of him. And we went to an outdoor... He went to his garden and he had everything set up, and it was a big screen that was quite thin and it was quite windy, and it had a really good sound system. But it was the film started about 7:30. It was getting pretty chilly, and because it was so windy, a lot of the time the screen would just kind of go in and out. And we were watching American Psycho, which has a lot of close-ups, so you'd see Christian Bale's face kind of distorted as he's running around with a chainsaw. So that was an interesting watch.
Yeah, I've never been to an outdoor cinema either. I haven't really experimented that much because I know what I like, you know what I mean?
Would you be keen?
Yeah, I'd like to try it, maybe with a film that I've seen before. Yeah, I know drive-in cinemas are big in America still. I don't really know how that works. I think you plug in like how does the audio work? Is it like a little booth with the audio next to you? Like a little pole?
I'm not sure. I don't even know how you watch it. Do you get out and sit on the hood of your car?
See, I don't know, because obviously you'd need to have a really clean windscreen. Because if you've got like kind of dirt splattered on it, then you're trying to like squint through dirt to see the cinema screen.
Yeah, I've never understood that one.
Yeah, you see it in like Greece, and it looks quite romantic, but I think it was just an excuse to like get off with your date back in the day.
Take her to an outdoor cinema.
She'll love that.
And I also really interested with, I haven't heard it done for many films, but more recently La La Land was played on a big screen, and in front they had a live orchestra doing the score throughout the film, which sounded really good.
That sounds great,
yeah. And I think that could definitely be experimented with, and I think you'd get a really good audience for that, because people love to see classical music and even film music live. So to have kind of the film going on while you've got the music in front of you would create even more of like an emotional feeling, I imagine.
Yeah, I really see the appeal of that. I'd really like to go to one of those. I know like Hans Zimmer has a lot of live performances, not exactly with the film on, but it goes for like all his soundtracks, and I'd really love to see that live. Because I'm not that big into classical music, but I really love like film scores, and yeah, just seeing that live would be great, whether it's with the film or not.
Exactly. And where's the weirdest place that you've watched the film?
Weirdest place? I don't know if I've watched a film in that many weird places. We watched Mulan in art class once, in like year 7. Which I would have been like 12, and it was just like 5 or 6 of us who had like finished the work before everyone else, and they wheeled out like a little TV, and we just kind of huddled to the side of the class and watched Mulan while everyone else got on with the work. And that was kind of strange, because it's like our little private viewing of Mulan while everyone just like works and looks at us with resentment. Like, oh, they're watching Mulan, we have to work still. So that was kind of strange, but no, I don't have too many weird answers, unfortunately.
I asked the question, but I can't think of anything.
I know, like, I don't know what weird examples you could give. I don't know. I used to have a PS Vita with quite a few movies on it. Like, you could buy cheap movies on there. So I had about 6 or 7 stored on it, like, super bad. And I watched that PS Vita in a lot of weird places, like in the tent and on like a trampoline. So that'd be a weird one.
Can you watch films, I don't know if you ever did this when you were younger, but sit in the back seat? And I remember those things that you could strap to the back. To the front
we
seat.
had those. Yeah,
and you could watch on like an airplane seat while your parents are driving.
Me and my sister had one, and she had a screen on hers, and I had a screen on mine, but I had the same like DVD player. So we'd have to always argue which film we're gonna watch. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, because obviously when you're 7 or 8, a 3-hour car journey is gonna feel like a eternity, and be very dull. But if you got a movie in front of you, yeah, great.
Unfortunately, I remember watching Hellboy. Which is a weird one to see. But I didn't really enjoy it because I got a bit too car sick.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I was always alright because I was looking ahead. I'd always get car sick if I looked out the window and saw like the road flashing past. But if I was like looking ahead, it's not a bother. It's strange because I can't like read in the car. If I try and read, I feel horribly sick. But I can watch a film.
And final question before we finish with some movie trivia.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on subtitles for English-speaking films?
I've seen a trend this recently with like, my sister watches films with subtitles on Netflix, even though it's English speaking. And I was talking to a mate the other day, I think it was Ethan. I don't know if you know who that is.
Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, and he was saying he likes watching it with subtitles. I think it was Ethan. Anyway, yeah, I don't see the point in that. I think it's with some series that have quite like speedy dialogue, you don't want to miss any plot points, and it helps you like absorb the story better if there's like loads of plot threads and names getting dropped. Like, I know a lot of mafia movies, there's like loads of names flying about, and a lot of like different plot threads. So in that way, if you're reading the subtitles, you can kind of absorb it better. But I think that'd just be distracting. Yeah.
I really don't like them. And I've been watching The Office, American Office recently on Netflix, and the subtitles come on, or the subtitles are on, and in the opening... Sorry.
Why do you have the subtitles on in the first place?
Yeah, I have the subtitles on because I'm watching with Nourish.
Ah, and she is a fan of the subtitle.
She puts her foot down and says, we're having subtitles.
Those goddamn girlfriends.
So we watch it with subtitles, and then with the opening credits, they appear at the bottom of the screen, so the subtitles are going over the top, but they're with bigger font as well. So they're like 18 font. So they're going over people's heads during conversation. And then when we were watching the episode, maybe other people were different, but my eyes always gravitate towards the subtitles.
Yeah.
And maybe that's an issue in foreign films sometimes, if I'm watching Parasite or Memories of Murder, because my eyes are obviously gravitating towards the lyrics.
Yep.
The lyrics. The subtitles. But I can't think of any other way because I don't want to watch it dubbed either.
Yeah.
So maybe I have to learn Korean to... Yeah.
Have you asked Nourish why she likes the subtitles?
I think she says that it helps her to understand certain things, and I can get that more for maybe important plot points.
Like jokes.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of the jokes you hear in The Office are almost ruined by the subtitles because you see the punchline before the actor says it.
Wow.
I don't understand it. But you're right. I feel that it's becoming more of a thing now.
I don't know why. Is it like... It kind of falls into that overstimulation that young people like. Like, not only do they want to watch their favourite programme, they want to read it as well. Like, it seems strange. Just like an overexhaustion of, like, stimulation. Yeah. Especially for The Office, it's so easy to follow and, like, not to downplay Nourish or anything, but I couldn't see any benefit to that. Like, the jokes are quite nice and digestible. It's like why everyone loves The Office. It's so easy to consume. The only scenario I could see, like, reading subtitles is, again, like, those really complex series when there are a lot of, like, names and, like, plot threads, like Succession or something like that.
It's really difficult to watch a film with it, but maybe I just need to... Because if you're watching it as a group, you're going to have to do what the group says.
Why? Why don't you put your foot down?
I'm too scared. We'll
Beta
finish
male.
We'll finish with a couple of trivia questions.
Okay.
Which movie depicted the battle scenes of D-Day so realistically that it caused PTSD in combat veterans when they watched it?
Saving Private Ryan.
And why do you say that?
Because it is.
I'm sorry, maybe why do you think that happened? Do you just think the opening scene was so realistic?
Yeah, it's a very terrifying opening. It's like one of the best scenes of all time. Because I think it's the build-up as well as like the suspense in the boat. Like, you follow the soldiers. There's like no visibility. They're all like panicking. They don't really know what's going to meet them on the beach. And as soon as those like doors to like the ships open and just like a barrage of like bullets and like shells, it's just like chaotic. And yeah, it's horrible. Like, you can see some of, like, the signs of, like, shell shock as well in some of the soldiers. Like, one of the guys gets his arm blown off, and he kind of stumbles around and picks it up, like he could attach it back to himself. Like, really tapping into that psychological, like, mayhem. And, yeah, it's a terrifying opening. It makes me feel like I've got PTSD, even though I've never seen any violence in my life.
It's an incredible film, you're right, and that opening has never been matched since, to be honest.
Not in a war film, no. It is peak directing by Spielberg.
Which movie has a Starbucks cup in every single scene?
Jack and Jill.
Why do you say that?
I only say Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler film, because I know there's a horrible amount of product placement. But that's Dunkin' Donuts. Because there's a whole thing with like Al Pacino being a sponsor for like Dunkin' Donuts. So it's not Jack and Jill. Can you give me a hint?
It'll surprise you. It's a film that you really like, starring Brad Pitt. Not Brad Pitt. Edward Norton.
Edward Norton. More of a hint. Give me a clue.
The first rule is I can't give you a clue.
Yeah, Fight Club. Brad Pitt's in Fight Club.
I knew it. Why did I not back
You
myself?
threw me off. Really? Every shot?
Every scene. Not every shot, yeah. Just find the Starbucks.
Did you say every shot? Every
I
scene?
said every scene.
Oh, that's still a lot. I wonder. I'd be surprised if it was actually like a corporate product placement, or if it was tapping in more of the themes of like anti-capitalism. Because if it wasn't, that's very hypocritical of David Fincher.
Yeah.
Like, we hate capitalists, we hate corporatism. Corporatism? Is that a word?
Corporatism, maybe?
Corporatism. I don't know. I'm very tired. But yeah.
And do you think Game of Thrones copied Fight Club when they included their Starbucks coffee?
I don't think it was a loving tribute to Fight Club, unfortunately. I think it was just laziness on the part of the filmmakers or TV makers.
Which characterised their whole
ethos
for the final season.
Yeah.
Which is the first US film to feature a toilet flushing?
Wow. That's an interesting question. Gone with the Wind?
No, it's a...
How far back are we going?
Hitchcock.
Why is it taking that long for a toilet to flush? Is it like taboo? It probably is to do with like the censorship guidelines. Like they really didn't allow anything. Like they didn't allow married couples to be in the same bed. Like as mad as that.
Wow. Yeah, so they wouldn't have a toilet flushing.
I'm not gonna say
indicator.
Psycho because that's a bit far. That's 1960s. Is it Psycho?
It's Psycho.
Really, 1960? That's crazy.
We'll have to do a bit more digging as to why that happened.
That's interesting. That's good trivia.
After which movie did the sale of pet rats increase rapidly?
Sale of pet rats, not the murder.
So it wasn't an
film?
anti-rat film.
Ratatouille.
Yeah.
It's got to be Ratatouille. What other film would it be?
To be fair, I can imagine people going to the pet shop thinking, I want
Just
a rat.
place a rat there.
Yeah, I want a rat that can teach me to cook. And then they just get it, just sits there, and they're like...
Just like plunk it on the head. It's not working. Pull my hair.
So, final question. Which movie has a scene of 2 seconds of footage that took months to create?
There's got to be a stop motion.
It's not a stop motion, and...
That's a very vague question.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of films that probably fall under this bracket, but this is particularly referencing one.
2 seconds that took months to make.
I know
Got
this
to be
film...
a shot that took... I don't know what that falls under.
Well, I know this film in particular has a lot of cuts, so I'm thinking it was an action scene that was 2 seconds long with loads of cuts.
Was it Kill Bill?
No.
I need another clue, I think.
It's an action film. The first one had Shia LaBeouf.
Transformers?
Yeah, Revenge of the Fallen.
What? Is there any other context to like what?
Unfortunately, I've just been given that answer. But I can imagine...
I want to know what shot.
But the fight scenes...
But like,
See-
does that fall under visual effects as well? Because obviously CGI can take months and months in any film. But I don't like that question, Alex. Is there one more?
Okay.
End
but-
on a better one.
Because you interestingly brought up stop motion, which obviously you'd imagine takes ages to create.
Yeah, I think it takes 24 hours to create 3 seconds, which is still mad.
What movie is the most death-packed film ever made, with an average of 5 people dying every minute?
Ooh. 5 people dying every minute. Does that discount zombies?
Yes.
Is it Commando? Thinking
No.
of a Schwarzenegger film.
It's
Is
a
it-
film set quite a long time ago.
Is it Braveheart?
You're not far off.
Gladiator?
Not far off.
Ah,
It's not 299.
300. Ah, yeah, that's just like non-stop action, isn't it? Like, just sweaty, oily men killing each other.
And what a way to end the podcast.
Yeah, we're sweaty, oily men, which we very much are.
Thank you. Enjoyed the film Topic Box, and we'll be back very soon for a 90s, 40s film.
Say that again.
We'll be back very soon for a 1940s film look.
Say that once more.
We'll be back very soon to delve into 1940s film.
Yep, see you then.